And then it suddenly just dawned on me, well, no, what the hell am I doing? All I ever wanted to do was to start an agency with Joel.
Hey, welcome back to Connection Request. I'm Joel Leman. We're doing something a little different with this one. I've loved interviewing makers and founders these last couple of years, but as you might know, a lot has changed for me since I started making the show. Not just the mustache, my whole professional world, heck, my whole life has changed. And as you may know, I started a new creative studio and consultancy called Vivace in 2023, teaming up with my longtime collaborator, Ryan Sheppard. Vivace is now in its second year, and we've grown a lot, learned a lot, and had a lot of fun. So the team thought it'd be a good idea to share some of our lessons learned along the way and put me in the hot seat for once, and Ryan. So I called up someone who knows us both really well, another longtime collaborator, Mimi Hayton. Mimi is Vivace's head of media, and I told her to ask us anything she wanted to know. What came out of this conversation, I think we can safely call the origin story of Vivace and reflections on year one. By the way, producer Marie asked me to mention that we actually recorded this chat a few months ago. She also thinks people might want to hear this kind of thing every now and again. So drop me a note if you want to hear more conversations like this with members of the team as we grow. Over to Mimi Hayton, interviewing my co-founder, Ryan Sheppard, and me. Enjoy.
I'm going to start off a little differently today by doing what I'm going to call reverse introductions. So I'm going to ask you to introduce each other. So Joel, let's start off with you. Can you introduce Ryan and tell us a bit about him?
Yeah, I'd love to. I knew you were going to throw some curveballs, Mimi, so I'm glad. Yeah, this is my brilliant co-founder, business partner, mentor, longtime collaborator, and friend, Ryan Sheppard. He and I, as Mimi alluded to, are business partners and co-founders at a little agency called Vivace Content. And how do I capture Ryan in a brief introduction? I mean, I've had the great fortune of working with many people in my life, but Ryan is one of the most energetic, optimistic, idea and solutions oriented people I've ever met. He's a brilliant storyteller, marketer, communicator, leader. And for most of our time together, he was actually my boss, but never really treated me like most bosses treated me, always kind of treated me as a real partner. And so when we started this business together, it was like a really natural extension of the relationship we had formed for many years. On top of his many and amazing achievements in business, he's also a family man and plays a mean bass. Oh, last but not least, tri-citizen. I mean, global citizen of the world, really. Has lived all over the world in many different cities, but is a citizen of Australia, the UK, and the US. And so has a really fascinating and varied kind of journey in terms of where he's been in the world, which adds to our global nature and flavor of that Vivace content.
Great.
I'm not going to do as good a job as that.
Ryan, over to you to introduce Joel.
Joel Leman is the co-founder of Vivace Content. He is probably the smartest, most talented and creative content marketer out there in the world at large. I've had the pleasure of working with him for some 10 years. For a little while, we were actually split. I had to pull him back over onto the other side just as quickly as I could. The thing about Joel is it doesn't matter what is given to him or what challenge he has to face. He always delivers something that's a little bit better, a little bit more special, a little bit more strategic and well thought out than you could have imagined. And that's been true now, and that's been true for the last 10 years. Absolutely. I'm discovering all sorts of things about him now as my co-founder. We talk every single day, and he just amazes me. It doesn't matter whether it's like accounting or operations or systems or technology or brand strategy and content. He has a great way about him with clients and just everybody. Everyone warms to Joel. They like to be in his orbit. Very caring, sensitive man. And he's a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughs. at Vivace, and we just have a way of just coming to decisions very quickly with minimum of fuss and just getting the job done together. So if there's one thing I would say that I've done right through this whole business and Vivace, it's my choice of partner. I got that absolutely spot on.
Yeah, really good. And I completely agree with everything you both said. So thank you. Now, I wanted to go on to giving everybody a little more background and understanding of Vivace itself. And it's been 7 months approximately since you launched Vivace content together, although there was probably even more incubation time prior to that, I'm guessing. But Ryan, how would you sum up the last few months in 25 words or less?
Definitely exciting, unexpected, challenging, but overwhelmingly, I realize I'm where I want to be and doing the kind of stuff that I always wanted to do. I get up in the morning, that old cliche, but I do feel like I want to get in and deliver great work. And I feel like I'm in the right place for that. So I would say, the first few months was a bit nail biting, but since then, with the clients that we brought in, I just have this tremendous feeling now, trajectory and momentum going forwards. And it's a fun ride to be on. But thank God, I have a partner, because if I tried to do this on my own, I just couldn't do it on my own. There's no two ways about it.
And Joel, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, before I get to the 25 words, I agree with everything Ryan said. Sort of every possible emotion one could experience in business all mixed into one. And also really fun. I think maybe the most motivating part right now is just that it's been really fun and energizing. And anything else that happens, that helps to balance it out.
And where was the seed of Vivace first planted, or where did it sort of sprout from?
Yeah, it's funny. We're both storytellers, but also this is a story that you could start at a lot of different points. In full honesty, Ryan and I have talked for many years about starting something together. And I think for a lot of those years, it was sort of a joke or a dream or yeah, maybe when or whatever, right? We had different spurts of like getting serious about it, but we also were both really happy at the big companies we worked at. We were having a lot of fun there. So there's always like what is it worth it for us to go start something different? And do we have the right things that we need in our personal lives to go off and start it? It really started in full after we both left the London Stock Exchange group, where we worked together for a while. And I actually, Ryan was saying earlier that he couldn't do this on his own. I actually tried to do this on my own. People who have followed this podcast and this journey, like I started out as like Joel, the freelancer / mini agency, whatever. And to be honest, it didn't work in the way I thought it would. It was fun. I only did it for a few months, but luckily on July 3rd of last year, 2023, I got this email from Ryan, and it's the most Ryan email ever. He said, "Do you still want to start the world's best content marketing agency with me?" And the best way I think to sum up Ryan in terms of like an ideas and energy guy, right? Of just being like, let's do this thing. And I immediately texted / called him and was like, yes, I'm in. I didn't have to think about it, even though I'd already started my own thing. I was just like, absolutely, I want to do this. We've been talking about this forever. And then, so he's like, all right, how about I fly out to Minnesota? For those who don't know, Ryan lives in the UK. I live in Minnesota in the US. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Thinking he'd maybe come in a few weeks or a couple months or whatever. And then we started talking about dates, and he's like, okay, what if I came on Saturday? And it was a Monday. And I was like, okay, that feels quick. But also, as is the story of our careers and journeys together, we kind of move quick and make decisions fast. So he flew to Minnesota 4 days later after that initial email. And then we spent the week together just dreaming up Vivace, thinking about what it would be, brainstorming business name. And then we also had a lot of fun that week, like just did all the Minnesota summer things, swam in a lake, ate lovely dinners, had a load of fun. And then from there, it was in some ways a quick start because we were very passionate, had a lot of energy, but in other ways, we didn't get kind of the client traction immediately that we thought we had, as Ryan sort of alluded to. But then fast forward to this year, as of January, things really picked up.
Yeah, I'd left London Stock Exchange and I'd thrown myself into doing building work. I was on a building site. And then I thought, oh, after about 6 months, I really should start to get back into the frame again. Started applying for jobs and kind of wasn't getting very much traction. And then it suddenly just dawned on me, well, no, what the hell am I doing? All I ever wanted to do was to start an agency with Joel. And I literally fired off that email thinking Joel's already kind of got his own thing going and it looks like it's picking up. Have I missed the boat? But luckily he responded straight away and we got going. Then we had a fun week in Minnesota and we made some kind of key decisions really early. One was that our focus would be on the financial industry and the associated industry where we have the most expertise. And I think that was a good decision because people need to know that you have that specialization. And then the other fun thing we did was coming up with the Vivace name, of course. Quite funny. I was looking at place names around Cornwall and Devon, where I live, little funny village names. Joel said, we're both musical. Why don't we look for a musical term? And he had this list of 15 names. And I went down it and there was this Vivace, Italian. I went, what does that mean? It's high tempo, agile. And I was like, that is it. Nothing else was going to come close. I just didn't want to find on a search that there was some other marketing agency with that name, but that was good. And then we settled on pink as our sort of core brand color because I was watching Lionel Messi playing for Inter Miami and loved that pink Adidas kit. So that's where that came from. And I think that's served us pretty well. I like that. The vibrancy of it goes well with the name. And then we had a little cooling off whilst we got some things straightened out and kind of started properly, I think, at the beginning of this year. Right, Joel? Really up and running.
Yeah. I mean, it's, any agency, you have to have a first client and then a second client and a third. And our first client was amazing. It was a smaller client and set of services that we were delivering, but it allowed us, I think, to take the time, I guess, to figure out who we are and what we could deliver. There's a lot of things that you need to figure out in any sort of new business. And even though we say things really kicked off in January, we were doing and delivering client work in the first few months, but I guess we had bigger ambitions to grow quickly, and that we did.
And apart from the name and the pink, how much of your brand strategy and vision, who you wanted Vivace to be, or what you wanted Vivace to be, did you have set from the beginning, and how much has sort of been developed over time?
Great question from a brand strategist.
I'll start, Joe, if you like. I think at its core, in terms of our strategy, is this deeply held belief and love of really good strategy and content, and belief that it can be such a powerful tool for business growth if you get it right. Joel and I both believe that every business has a story to tell, and every business can create content that will delight its audiences and drive that business forward if done properly. So I think that's sort of at the core. Another key thing driving us is obviously we've been in-house from Thomson Reuters to Refinitiv to London Stock Exchange, and we've worked with many agencies on that journey and learned a lot, good and bad. And our philosophy was, let's just be the agency we always wanted working for us. Agile, no fuss, quality work, nice to work with. I know it sounds a little bit simple, but just friendly, fun people to get on and work with. That's really core to our philosophy. Joel, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mimi. As I'm sitting here thinking, the three of us, most of the brands that we have worked on in our careers are quite large, either established or evolving out of something really established. And so therefore have whole brand teams and strategists and agencies to help think through that, right? We, as a bootstrapped small business, we put in what I would say is like the right amount of time and effort at the beginning into like V1 of the brand, right? So as Ryan said, we had colors, we had some like taglines and messaging and positioning, but we came up with that in a matter of weeks. And I would say now, as we grow and evolve, as I think most agencies do, we will eventually add more and more to the brand and evolve and change and grow and have some really talented creatives help us, bring our brand into the future. But I think maybe the greatest thing for us is that so much of Ryan's and my shared beliefs, which obviously flow into the brand and the company, we just have this like sort of shared context and language and understanding that doesn't really need to be documented or written down. I would say as we go and as we started, there's tons of, like I've got this running document called the Vivace way, which is like kind of our values or eventually will be our values. So we are sort of documenting and evolving and writing things down as we go. But it's one of those things where like, if we had all the time in the world, would we have spent months and hired a team to get our brand right? Of course. But like, that wasn't where we were at the time. And that, that wasn't the resources that we had.
We use that
I like
Vivace
that.
way for everything, by the way. It's
Vivace
become
way.
a catch cry. Could be you're ordering a second round of beer and don't ask for anyone to pitch in. That becomes the Vivace
The
way.
Vivace way.
It's just
Yeah, I'm on
it's
board
just
with
a
that.
catch cry. Makes
It's the equivalent of YOLO,
Yeah.
but the business version. So would you say that every brand has a story to tell is the elevator pitch for Vivace?
I think so.
It is now.
Yeah.
This is actually a brand strategy session, not an
Yeah.
interview.
I mean,
Joe,
something
up on the website.
Yeah, I'll do it as we're talking. I mean, something tells me that one's probably taken by someone. But I mean, an
Yeah.
elevator pitch, we can take that. I think it's a great elevator pitch. We also have a tagline, which is like the agile content plus strategy agency for the financial industry. And as Ryan said, the industry thing is interesting because we actually, if you look across just our current client portfolio and sort of clients in the pipeline, it is like B2B, I'd say, is the big, but we do have quite a mix of financial related, sustainability, data focused, right? So there is a mix of things, but I like every brand has a story to tell. That's pretty good. Let's do it.
We're thinking about our positioning and going forwards, and the fact that we're serving clients who are outside of the core financial industry, and we think the way we will tackle that, rather than making some big play Vivace for professional services, we'll just tell that story of our sort of expanded reach through case studies. So actually showing the work that we're doing for different industries as we go forwards is probably the best way. And we've got some really nice case studies shaping up, which if only we had time.
It's I'll just add to that. It's also, as I think with most creative brand marketing agencies, it's like such a meta thing, right? Because like you spend all day counseling clients on what they should do with their brand and like what stories to tell and how to position themselves and what industry, right? Like, but then it's also one of those things, that we do for ourselves, but probably if every agency is honest with themselves, that's the thing they carve out the least amount of time and priorities for, right? But, it is one of those things that's quite meta and you do need to sort of practice what you preach a little bit, I think, in order to be taken seriously. So we do think about it all day long, both for ourselves and for our clients.
Yeah. We have a Friday founders meeting, about an hour and a half on Friday, and we just try and get back to our growth story. What are we doing here? What do we need to update? Have discussions around, what's our model for expanding and bringing new talent on board? What do we want Vivace to feel like for people who are working for us? How do our values come through to new people that we bring in? Because we're really at that sort of stage right now. We're very lucky. We didn't mention this, although it's Joel and I. We've just got this incredible network of real marketing and comms professionals around us from our careers. People like you, Mimi, of course. and many others. And that's kind of powerful because it doesn't matter too much the project. There's always, Joel and I have a meeting of minds like, we should bring in that person on this. They're absolutely perfect for that. So we can be at the
It's
core.
really fun.
Yeah, really fun. And you know, it's incredible because we knock on doors and I don't think we've had anyone say no. Everyone's kind of interested in trying, flexing, having a little go at something extra. So
Yeah,
that's part of it.
yeah, Mimi, why did you agree to come collaborate with us?
Well, I mean, the timing of me leaving LSEG recently and you being ready to take on a few more collaborators. I'm not sure if that's the official term that you'll be using moving forward in the Vivace way, but I quite like it. It just worked out really well. And of course, I think having worked together in the past for so long and knowing that we get along and we think alike, and yeah, it was a no-brainer, which kind of leads me to the next sort of segment or topic that I wanted to talk about, which was about the two of you. And because in my mind, the Vivace story is as much about your professional and personal relationship and the dynamic between you two as it is broader strategy and responding to the market. And yeah, so it would be great to hear a little bit more about that relationship between you two. When did you both meet, and when did the idea of starting a business venture together first come up? I know you alluded to that earlier, but yeah.
Yeah. So the way that I met Ryan, as far back as I can remember, is I was working as the social media manager at Thomson Reuters. And we first started to interact because Ryan at the time, if I remember correctly, was like VP of sponsorships and something else, was working in the brand team. And basically, I always thought of Ryan as the guy who's doing all sorts of cool projects. He was like leading the content marketing activation for Formula One sponsorship, which, like, even though to be completely honest, I have no interest in like racing, is like, as far as working in a B2B marketing environment, that is definitely one of the cooler things you get to do, right? He also was like leading this cool project called Canada Power Play, where Thomson Reuters was really trying to build its presence in Canada because we all know now that it's a Canadian company, but that's because 10 years ago they started to say we need to start positioning ourselves more as a Canadian company rather than a US or otherwise. So anyway, we met because we started to interact through that. I remember all sorts of weird stories of like, I would be up in the middle of the night needing to be on call to like post a tweet after the race got done saying like, congratulations to so-and-so driver or whatever. It was, anyway, different time. Well, that's all the way back then. But then there became a time, and I suppose we both have slightly different parts of this story, where there were some team changes internally. Ryan was moving from one team to another, and I had a conversation with our senior vice president about my current manager at the time, who's a dear friend now. I just felt like I wasn't growing and maybe getting the kind of like recognition and compensation that I felt I deserved at the time. So I sort of signaled to the SVP, like, I'd really like a new boss and a promotion. And luckily that worked. I think whatever I said in that got me to report to Ryan. And then I'm sure Ryan can tell his side of the story of how that relationship happened. But that was sort of the genesis. And then that sort of started me working for Ryan across 3 different companies for many years.
Those were great days back at Thomson Reuters because it managed from one way or another to work up into this editor-in-chief position for enterprise channels with Joel on my team. It was only a small team, wasn't it, Joel? But we suddenly had responsibility for the content across the Thomson Reuters website, the newsletter, and this new blog site, and a lot of license to just shape that how we saw fit, right, Joel? We kind of developed our own strategy. Credit to our leadership back then. They gave us the leeway to take it and make it what it was.
Yeah.
A lot of what we did was try to tell the Thomson Reuters story as a whole. There's obviously a lot happening with the divisions, whether they're legal, tax and accounting, Reuters News, of course, financial. We try to tell stories which are at the Thomson Reuters brand level that combined all those businesses into one theme and told the story of what Thomson Reuters as a whole did against issues like food security or whatever it is, or the electric car revolution, or whatever it might be.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Well, and just to jump in and add to that, I think something about our relationship is like, I always told people from the beginning, it was just like the best professional relationship that I ever had. And I don't, and I don't tell Ryan this enough and give him enough credit, but Ryan taught me so much and also gave me so much opportunity and like, just, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of one of those things like taught me everything I know kind of thing, right? Where like anything that I feel remotely like good at and confident at is in part because I got to learn from him. And then Ryan, I don't like, again, you can characterize it how you want to, but like from my perspective, very quickly, like you treated me kind of like your deputy, right? You're like your number two guy, even though I was this like kid in my 20s. You gave me a lot of responsibility and room to grow. And also, I would say you always saw things and continue to see things in me that I don't see in myself and push me in a way that's a really healthy dynamic. And then, Ryan, I've always characterized our relationship, at least in those days, as like you were just this consummate ideas guy, right? Like Michael Moore, who I alluded to earlier, always said about Ryan, like Ryan has more good ideas in a day than most people have in a year. And I totally agree with that. It's
Well, he went the other
100%
way,
true. And I think I was the guy then who sort of came in and said, those are all great ideas. How can we operationalize these ideas and execute them? Right. So like, to put it very like loosely, right? If Ryan was the ideas and visionary guy, then I would come in to help like execute on that vision. We don't talk about that much, Ryan, but that's very much at the time how our relationship like felt.
No, and I think it's really kind to say that, was really responsible for your development, Joel. But I think Mimi and anyone who's listening to this who knows you, Joel, would go like, yeah, that would have been pretty easy to have been managing Joel because, you're so incredibly capable that it was not really some great mark of leadership. It was just like, this guy can just fly. It was always
I do
the
think,
case.
Ryan,
Yeah.
though, that you are also somebody that is very good at identifying great talent and elevating it and giving that person or that individual the opportunities to, really use that talent, use it to its best potential, and isn't intimidated by that as well, even if it's not necessarily something that, you're an expert in, but you're willing to say, yes, you understand that, you run with it. And I think that is actually more exceptional than it should be, really,
I totally
especially
agree.
in the corporate world.
I
Yeah.
totally agree.
I had a great mentor, Eileen Lynch. Everyone knows Eileen, but I commented to her one time that it didn't matter where she was. She always had a great team around her and would bring people with her. And she just turned to me and said, that's what it's all about. That is the game. You find good people, you develop them, and you keep them close. And that always just stuck in my head. So you got to give, yeah. So thank you. That was very nice of you to say all those nice things. But everyone knows when great talent comes across your doorway, it's like, just give them scope. I always feel like your job actually is to just get the barriers out the way that could hold that person back. That's your number one job as a leader. Set some direction and then help them just get to where they can go,
Mia Walchuk said the same thing, another great manager from
Shout out Mia.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, this is something that I think, Ryan, you don't sort of fully realize yourself, but, you just constantly say, like, everybody knows X, or like, of course this happens. I just think, like, not everybody knows that, sadly. And like I think you're just more unique as a leader, manager, and mentor than maybe So I'm glad we had Mimi here to be the arbiter of
Wow, I'm really enjoying this podcast so far.
It's just a CV, a video CV for you both to put on your LinkedIn pages.
Yeah.
So we sort of covered, I guess, what it is that you both saw in each other that gave you that vote of confidence to say, yes, I want to start a business with this person. But how has this impacted your relationship since then? Like, how has it, for the better or for the worse, or how has it changed it?
Okay, I'll take that. One thing that's really high and springs to mind for me is that Joel's a very open and sensitive person who will express his feelings about things. I guess, an older generation, bit British, kind of a big chunk of Australian blokey. But we actually talk about genuinely how we're feeling about things, how our mental health is, what's going on with our families, what trials, tribulations, challenges, good and bad, highs and lows. And that's kind of become a really important part of my life now. And I never had that before. I mean, I never talked to my blokey friends about feelings and stuff like that. Not so much, maybe a little bit, watching some football or something, but
After a few
it's
pints.
something we really make. It's part of the Vivace way, is to be express, how's your mental health out of 10? How are you feeling today? Because these things do go in peaks and troughs. We talk through things, through stuff. That's become really important to me. So that's a massive change for me.
It's really nice to hear, Ryan. I agree with all of that. And I guess I would say a couple things. One is like one of our little like things written down in the Vivace way is relationships over revenue, like relationships greater than revenue. And for me, like I assume I have my parents to thank for this, or like I don't really know what, but like I just a thing that makes me tick is building relationships and connections with people, right? Like that is a part of my core values. I think I'm really grateful to kind of have that grounding right now, because as you start a business, there can be all sorts of other motivations, right, to make decisions, financial, ego, whatever. But like, I don't know, Ryan, from the day we started this business together, I think I said something to the effect of like, no matter what happens with this, our friendship to me is like more important than this business. And yeah, I feel that so intimately, right? Like if ever this business, as we grow, which we have grown rapidly, which has brought its own set of challenges, right? And like conversations that we just need to have about how we grow and how we manage that growth, which are all wonderful conversations to have. But as we do that, I never want to lose sight of like why we started this, and like the fact that on our best days, this comes from a friendship and a professional relationship, right? And so that's like always been super important to me. I guess the other thing I would say is I didn't think I could get any closer with Ryan. Like we were already very close before we started this journey. But I guess as with any intimately close relationship in your life, and you hear founders talk about this all the time, right? Like I listened to a bajillion episodes of How I Built This or whatever, and people talk about kind of a business partner co-founder relationship and just how intense and intimate and close it can be, right? And I think I understand that more now, right? Like we have disagreements and we have I don't know if I would call them arguments, but we have things that we come to a conversation with a different point of view on, right? But like so far, we've never had something that's left us like, oh, I really hate that guy, or I wish I weren't working here, right? It's all just to me a part of what I assume to be most intense, co-founder relationships, where it's like, yeah, you just got to be really grounded and have something to come back to in your relationship in order to make those harder conversations easier.
Yeah, that relationship thing, that sort of philosophy that relationships are core, it goes through to our clients as well. So we really encourage our clients to be close and tell us how they're feeling about how things are going. So, a few months ago, we just got this very gentle hint with one of our clients that they felt they could sense that we were getting really quite busy. No, it wasn't any, big major issue or anything like that, but we were sensitive enough to that to think, you know what, Joe, we need to have a huddle and a bit of a sort out here. So we got together and we quickly mapped a whole program about how we were going to make damn sure that we devoted enough time, attention, quality, whatever it might be, to what we were doing with that client, and kind of went back to her. And she was kind of surprised. She was like, guys, there was no big deal here, but really appreciated that we'd picked up on a little bit of that vibe.
And just to add to that, like I obsess about client relationships. We're in a relationships business, right? In B2B, right? We're not looking to have 1,000 clients, right? We're looking to have, like, it's at least in this stage of our growth, we're looking to have a handful of large, important, strategic, like I would almost call them strategic partnerships, even though they are our clients, right? And as you can imagine, a big part of Vivace is like, we've got this amazing network of people who we've worked with and have gone on to other places. And so people who maybe used to be colleagues have now become clients. And so with both that, and then actually to add to that as a value, it flows through to like the talent that we sort of bring in, right? So like Mimi, I said to you within the past few weeks, like same thing I said to Ryan, right? Which is like, Mimi, we're now working together, and I value your friendship more than I value this professional aspect, right? And so if ever like you're like, hey Joel, you're an asshole, or I don't like working with you anymore, then I want you to tell me that so we can maintain our friendship, because that's more important to me, even though you're really good as a collaborator. But it kind of, as a value, it really does flow through to kind of every aspect of our business.
Well, I had the question, how do you manage conflict? But I think you kind of answered that. You got to that yourself quite nicely. Thinking now about more of the day-to-day running of Vivace, in terms of both your strengths and your weaknesses, how are they reflected in the role or the roles that you're both taking on in the business now? And have you been very intentional about that, or is that evolving as time goes on?
We've been very intentional, and it is evolving, I think would be the answer.
Yeah.
So we realized we've reached a certain stage where we needed to get our act together on some real operational things that were starting to trip us up, because we've been running so fast, bringing in clients, doing client work. So we sort of made a bit of a division, didn't we, Joel, where I would really jump in on the operational side, the tax, the account. We're a bit complicated because we're UK, US, and there's real implications of that. By the way, anyone out there is starting up a business, we can advise a very good tax accountant who understands how that works on both sides, because it's critical. So I've taken on actually more of a sort of operational ledge, and Joel's a bit more on the client development, and it's just sort of a natural evolution. We still cross over and do bits and pieces of these, but just having that sort of specialism, I think, is helping us. Both of us we call it Vivace 1-2, where if a piece comes in, we'll have a chat about it, a piece of work, content or strategy. What happens is, tends to be one of us will have a go at it, knowing that, and it might be me in the morning, and then Joel will come in the afternoon and input his piece. Then we have a call and we work it out together with the best of both minds coming together. And that's just so fabulous. That's sort of been the Vivace 1-2, the Vivace way. It's kind of an evolution thing. And I didn't realize how valuable actually the US UK split and time difference would be. It just means you're actually on pretty much all the time, and it works really well for us. Also in terms of bringing people in, whether in the States or the UK, so that's working out really well for us. Joel, our evolution, what would you say?
Yeah, I guess I would add to that 2 points I'd make. One is, earlier I described how like the role that Ryan played as my manager was like the big idea, visionary, push forward, and then I would be like the operationalized execution. In weird ways that we've talked about, that's been very surprising to me, is like we've, like Ryan says, we both play every role, but there's been a little bit of reversal where now I'm like, let's do all these crazy things and grow, and like, let's think about the next 5 to 10 years or whatever. And Ryan, in a very helpful way, because this is where having two co-founders is really helpful, is like, one step at a time. Let's get this part right first. And like, it's a great balance, but it's surprising in that it's a slight role reversal. The other thing I would say as we grow is like one of my biggest question marks right now is the first 6 or 7 months of our growth, right? It has worked that every single client, almost every single meeting, every single everything, both of us are on, right? So we both make decisions together, we weigh in together, we hire talent, like, right? Like everything we do together. As we grow and as we scale, we need to think about how do we scale ourselves. And I think, Ryan, tell me if you disagree, inevitably that will mean actually less time together and more like, do we both need to be on this meeting? Do we both
Yeah.
need to make this decision? Right. And so actually probably over time, slightly less time together. And I think I'm both like excited about that, but also kind of scared, right? Because like so much of why I feel it works so well is because we talk about everything together. I guess what I imagine it'll be is it'll just be like we'll get better at our responsibilities and swim lanes, and we will just know what decision needs both of us and what decision doesn't.
But we're working it out as we go. But I do agree with Joel. Joel's really pushing things forward. It's like, the growth story. And I've surprisingly, and I didn't expect this when we started, I've become a little bit more of the guys like, let's just slow it down a little bit. Let's look at it, like let's look at the
Plot
accounts.
twist.
Just forecast out. Yeah, I've become the more careful person and I've never been like that in my life. I've always made decisions.
No, I've never seen that side of you, Ryan.
My decision to move into marketing, from school to university, I made in 10 seconds. My decision to move to the UK from Australia, I made in less than a minute. So it's quite a different.
He's a quick decisions guy, and yeah, plot twist is the best way to summarize it. But again, it is. I really believe this strongly. On our best days, it's a really healthy dynamic to have, right? Because we balance each other out. And that, as anybody knows, managing growth is sort of like the name of the game. And we don't want to grow too quickly. That could kill us, frankly, right? Like that we can't do that. We can't afford to grow too fast. So it is a really helpful balance to have.
We can't afford to ever drop the quality of the work that we're doing for clients. That's number one. It doesn't matter what's happening around us and the job, that whatever we do for the client has to be just, that little bit better than maybe they're expecting. So that's the challenge. Whilst we've got all this other things going on, is making sure there isn't any dip in that side of things.
Well, and if I could drop a little nugget in that I haven't even shared with you, Ryan, yet, is I had my first, this is new on the mic. Don't worry, I won't do anything crazy. I had my first session with a mentor. I posted on LinkedIn recently about how I started with a new mentor. And in our first 15 minutes of conversation, she kind of stopped me and she's like, okay, I've heard you say a few times that you're scared about growing too quickly. She's like, you brought up that point a couple of times. And then in a way that only a wise mentor can do, she said, what if instead you thought, how could we grow this faster than we ever thought possible? And I was like, that's a different question. Wow. Ryan. So anyway, it is one of those interesting things where in a positive way, because we've never really owned businesses together, at least a marketing agency like this. And so we do have a bit of a blank slate, right? I think every new business owner has a bit of probably healthy naivete, right? Which is we have a blank slate. We can do whatever we want. Obviously, there's great models and resources out there to learn, but it is a bit of a blank slate in terms of what we could be and how fast we could grow.
I just want to say, I definitely don't want to hold things back. And I love the fast growth. I have this vision in mind of these two offices, both one in Minnesota, one in Exeter, and they're going to be bright, light, vibrant, energetic places, teams working with us. I can feel
fun.
it. I have a dream.
I've started keeping my eye on real estate in my neighborhood, Ryan.
And follow-up notes for after the interview. This is really just your founders, Founders Friday chat.
We just happen to be recording it. Honestly, it kind of is. So thank you, Mimi, for guiding us through this. I think we need to have you in to moderate our Founders Friday maybe once a month or something.
Happy to.
Good idea.
What are some of the best things or your favorite thing about agency life? And what's your least favorite thing? Joel.
Why don't we start with the worst thing first? I think the worst thing for me is more of a general thing, which is like, it is a different level of stress or kind of stress. I don't know that I would say it's like more stressful than corporate life. It's just like, we're really attached to every part of this, right? It has a direct correlation on our life, on our family, on our time. It's just like, yes, you have more ownership in some ways. And then in other ways, you don't have like this reliable, steady paycheck coming in. You have to make sure that those that the money is flowing through and all that. So I'd say it's just like a different kind of stress and emotional investment in what you're doing. Honestly, that's one of those things that is both the worst and the best part a little bit, because there's also upside and reward to that. So anyway, that is part of it. What's the best thing? I think the best thing is it is just really fun and energizing. Like, I can't remember the last time I had a stretch of this many days of genuinely waking up every day and just like thinking about this business and challenge and using every part of my mental capacity almost, right, to do that. As with all great things in life, you need a bit of moderation. I do struggle, as both of you know, to sort of turn my brain off sometimes. And I also struggle with anxiety. So like, as we can all tell, that can make for an unhealthy mix if not handled properly. But it is a wonderful thing to wake up every day being excited to talk to your colleagues, solve problems, work with clients, and like use as much of your skill set as you know how to use and push yourself.
And that's the different mindset. It's that thing that, this is my time. If I don't, if I don't put in the hours, this doesn't happen. So there's that. The stress comes with that. But like you're saying, Joel, it's very fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
This can be whatever it can be because of what we do together. The other thing I'd say most enjoyable is discovering where we can take this. So we didn't think we would be working on a major sort of brand migration repositioning project at this stage in the agency, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we can do that, and it's like, wow, this is another area that we hadn't even considered. That's really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, just to pick up on that, another thing, like, Ryan, I feel like we spent like the exact amount of time thinking through everything. And I think both of us had this vision of this is version one of who we are in our positioning and the services we offer and the industries that we're targeting. But I think we both had a shared belief that like that would evolve over time. And in that way, I think that's quite healthy, because if we had spent months saying these are our exact service offerings and we only do these things and these are our specialties and we'll never do anything else, then we would have missed out on all these other amazing client opportunities that we now have kind of at our doorstep. So that I'm quite happy with, that we didn't only say, we are only going to specialize in this one exact area forever and ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the future, what are some Vivace achievements that you each have on your bucket list, or clients you'd like to work with, projects you'd love to do?
I mean, I've got lots of them, I guess. I think one is actually less about clients and more about us, right? Like currently we have contractors and subcontractors who support us. But you can bet that like as soon as we feel comfortable and like it's a financially responsible decision, we want to have full-time talent working with us. That's a real business decision of when we'll feel like we're ready for that step. But I want to have people around us who think about this business as much as we do and who want to be a part of building a culture and who want to like have an opportunity to like build an agency from the ground up with us, like that that is something that I'm really like passionate about, is hitting that milestone as soon as we feel that it's the right time to do so. Beyond that, I mean, it is, I think, just sort of continuing to notch up amazing clients and amazing work, working with amazing people to do it right. And we certainly have that in our current client portfolio. We have some like really exciting clients who are very far along in the pipeline with us that I'm super excited about the kinds of projects that we're pitching on and talking about right now. I continue to have things that are like, that I describe as like, this is my dream project to work on. It's right in this, in like my obsessions and what I care about and all of that. So I'd say honestly, just continuing all of that. Maybe, you know, there's all sorts of other milestones, but I guess those are the couple ones I'm thinking about right now. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Having full-time people, but yeah, I'd love to. I mean, in the medium term, as Joel said, 5 good-sized clients really firing away, and then next year doubling that, I would hope, get these offices in place. But yeah, I'd love for us to be winning awards and that sort of thing. I know awards aren't everything, but what the heck, we'll get in for a few of those. And building out our positioning in our case studies. We haven't done much of that so far, but there's some good stories to tell about Vivace, and I'd like to see those surfacing in the, end of this year, beginning of next year as well.
If I could throw in 2 others, I hope someone's taking notes. We're really having like just like our quarterly check-in here, so it's recorded for the world to hear. 2 others. One is, I really want to evolve our visual identity. To be honest, like, we did our visual identity, and I am not a designer. I won't speak for Ryan if he identifies as a designer, but like, it's one of those both problems and opportunities when you know some of the most talented designers in the world and creatives. You sort of have this like, oh, well, I think it's time to take our brand to the next level, right? And so that is very much something in my radar. And then to get a little bit meta, we are working really hard on season 3 of Connection Request right now and thinking about, what does Connection Request in the future look like? How, like, for me and the team behind it, shout out producer Marie, as we think about how to evolve Connection Request into season 3 and a new era and all of that, that is something I definitely want to make sure to carve out time for, because it's something I love doing. I love having conversations with smart people. So I'd say that's another milestone, is launching season 3 and evolving Connection Request. I will just say we are working on what will be an amazing guest lineup for season 3. How about that?
So I've got so many questions that I want to ask, but I feel like we are running out of time. But if you could do this over again, setting up and launching an agency and developing it in these early stages, would you do anything differently?
That's interesting. Do you know, I'm not sure we would, because I'm not sure how we could have done things that differently. I think we did the right thing where we really homed in on our network to start with, which is a smart place to start. And people who may be listening to this, I want to thank some of the people who perhaps we haven't been in such close contact with for even 2-3 years, who just stepped in and did so much work for us to make introductions, set up time calls. It's just incredible. So I think that was the right thing to do. I wouldn't change a bit about that. I think the Spark newsletter, Joel, full credit to you, was an absolute genius idea, and which sprung a very important client with the very first issue, a client who actually commented in the email, power of content marketing, huh? So amazing. I think that was a good move. Well, I think maybe would have done a bit more on the operations groundwork right from the outset, and systems. Maybe you were trying to push for that. We were chasing ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to really double down on what you said, because there are so many people to thank in this, like, even though Ryan and I are like the faces of this business and whatever, there have been so many people in our network who have helped us along the way. Mimi, you are one of them. So many people, both in the early days and throughout, who, can you check our brand, our positioning, our messaging? Can you help us with clients? Will you subscribe to our newsletter? Will you like all those kinds of things? So many people have helped us along the way, even if it's just like liking and sharing our posts on LinkedIn, right? It is one of those things that like every little bit helps, especially for a new business, right? So I absolutely agree with that. I agree with you, Ryan. There's not much I would do differently. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but I think most things have happened very organically and naturally in the way that like, we focused on the right things at the right time. I'd say the only thing that you and I talk about all the time is maybe finding an accountant who could support our business earlier, like who had exactly what we needed. But no major regrets or things I would do differently. I agree with Ryan that we made some good bets in the beginning that have paid off dividends now.
So final question then. Joel, what's a question that I should ask Ryan that I haven't?
Where he sees Vivace in a year from now.
I see Vivace in a year from now. I think we will be a 6-person team, full-time team, again with contractors around us. I think I can see us having that first office space, which we so dream about. I tell you what, if we could have double the number of clients who are like the clients we have right now, I would be in heaven. We've got such good clients that
we do have amazing clients.
They challenge us. We have great relationships with them. Just brilliant. We're so lucky in how we've fallen on our feet. If we could have twice as many, just like the ones we have, that would be fantastic in a year's time. And, some of all the back end things all really smooth, the systems all running like clockwork, so we don't even have to really think about them. And then a growth plan for the next 2 years, which is financed, thought out, and just ready to go, like a runway, I think is the expression they use.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm in.
And Ryan, what's a question that I should ask Joel that I haven't?
Joel, how do you feel about the year ahead and the balance of work life and your own life, and how are you going to balance that going forwards? Because there's a lot going on.
I'm so excited for the year ahead. As I said, I wake up every day excited about this business, thinking about it. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this business. I think about this business probably too much, but in a way that is generally fun and energizing. I'm beyond excited for the year ahead, and I'm excited for the people that choose to go on the journey with us, right? For the talent that we have around us, for the clients who are with us, who will hopefully stick with us for a very long time. I'm really genuinely excited. The work-life balance thing, I'm how do I feel about it? There's a lot in my personal life that as we grow this business, and as I grow as a person and go through lots of like changes, I do want to make sure that I have the proper focus on my personal life, my friendships, my family, my mental health, right? I want to make sure that none of that gets sacrificed for the business. And Ryan, I think you said a few weeks ago, let's make sure we're running the business isn't running us. But I'd say I'm very lucky to have amazing friends, amazing colleagues, an amazing partner. Shout out, Natalie, I love you. An amazing mentor, an amazing therapist, right? Like I do have a wonderful support system in place, which includes both of you on this interview, right? To make sure that I am keeping those things in mind as we go.
Yeah. Okay, one final sneaky little one, because I think a few people listening might be curious about this. Is there anything you miss, either of you, about the corporate world?
Yes, I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, the shortest, easiest answer, which is so cliche, but is the people, right? Like the people and the expertise of like when you work in a big corporate, you just get to meet and work with and collaborate with so many people, and for us all over the world, right? That is super, super energizing and fun. And for anything you do, you can call up like the SEO team, the best 3 designers, the best writer, you can just like call up the person, you can ask for budget, you can do it right. Like there are wonderful things about the corporate world. And like for people who know me, like I wasn't looking to leave the corporate world when I left LSEG. Just there were a lot of things I really enjoyed about my job at that time. And so, yeah, I'd say that people is kind of the low-hanging fruit answer, which is also true.
I totally agree. It's the people, that office environment when there's a crowd of you and someone says, should we go to the pub and have a chat after work or something like that? And you'll crowd around and have a great evening and actually sort out a lot of things outside of work. I
You
miss
have
that.
to get that Exeter office set up, Ryan.
I know.
And we can all be down there and heading to the pub and not being in the office, being in the pub instead.
I like where Mimi's at. Mimi, we're going to need you to come back and keep doing this and moderating our quarterly connects because it's been very helpful. And
Of course.
may I just say before you close us out, first of all, Mimi, thank you for agreeing to this very strange and interesting opportunity and challenge. It's not everyone who would agree to guest host on another person's podcast of the multi-layered relationships that we have. So just thanks for doing it and doing an awesome job with it. And also thanks for being on this journey with us. You, as you know, have been a very important collaborator in my life for many years and friend, and to both have the opportunity to work with you again and then now do fun, silly things like this is the best. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah, thank you, Mimi. Really awesome job.
I've had a lot of fun and I quite like being in the director's seat, as it were.
Good.
Thank you both so much.
Appreciate it. Catch ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
That is a wrap for today's episode of Connection Request. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter on LinkedIn for more reflections on creativity, purpose, and the future of work. Special thanks to Marie Ianazzo, Joe Ianazzo, and of course my co-founder Ryan Sheppard. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Connection Request.